And we are on for an awesome new episode of Ronin's Den with some really cool announcements. Everybody might have noticed our new title screen. We have gotten brand new art in from the awesome Jeffrey Baker of When Suddenly Games. And tonight we're going to be doing our den discussions on some Reddit posts that we found over the course of the week that we found particularly interesting. Steve?
Yeah, once again, thank you, Jeffrey. A good friend of the channel, a good friend of ours. Crypt is Open is their flagship game they're working on. Going to be going into its final playtest version here pretty soon. So that's really exciting for Jeffrey over at When Suddenly. And the art, honestly, it just looks amazing. I love what he did with the dogs. Uh, do you want to quickly tell everyone the names of the three dogs so that
Yeah.
they know for the future?
Yeah, I can totally do that. Okay, so going in order from left to right, in purple, holding up the wonderful D20 magical staff, we have Winry. These dogs are all based on my pack of Malamutes and Huskies I have at home. And Winry is my perfect princess of a Husky. You guys might see her occasionally in the background when I record. Going from her in a stunning suit of plate mail holding an amazing broadsword is Ronin. Ronin is the namesake of the channel. He's unfortunately not with us anymore. I had him for about 17 years. I lost him a couple years ago. And then in the red cloak, wielding the two daggers, we have Alphonse. You will definitely see and hear him trotting around on camera from time to time during recordings. Um,
Yeah,
yes.
it is that click, clack, 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 clack that you will sometimes hear. But yeah, yep, that is those are the names of the pups, and we are so thankful to have had our friend remake them for us. So with that being said, I hear you have a good one for us to start out. So
Oh, yes. We're going to start off with this Reddit post I found where I'll just read it because I'll just read it. It's from the
just read
D&D
them.
forum. It says, player keeps getting bummed out over leather working. My player insists on being a leather worker. He says it's the whole reason he became a ranger in the first place. That's fine. I agree. Yeah, it's a cool thing for rangers to do. I found a whole rule set online for leatherworking for what he can make. He's not satisfied though. He wants to have the highest AC out of everyone and never wants to be hit because he says multiple layers on that should mean more armor. It's just making me take away from the story, and I want to tell and try to negotiate how leatherworking should work for him. It's really bumming me out. What should I do? Do you want to go first? Or do you want me to go first? I think you'll be nicer than I will.
I'll go. I'll go first. What should you do? Nothing. You found a supplement. You showed him the supplement. You said, "Hey, this is what we're gonna use." He says, "That's not good enough." You say, "I don't care. This is what we're going to use."
Yeah.
End of discussion. He wants the highest AC. Number one, leather isn't even the highest armor. Like, there are rules in that system for how armor works. I can understand tweaking them a little bit. This DM already went above and beyond. They got a supplement and said, "Hey, let's use this. This will pretty much give you what you're asking for." And if that's not good enough, I think the DM has done their obligation. They found something. They found a way to make it interesting. They've went way above and beyond, and I don't think the DM should do anything. If you don't like it, I don't know what to tell you, man. Play a different class, get a different backstory, do something different. This is what I found. Have at it, man.
Yeah. You said it nicer than I would, but yeah, pretty much same thing. You know, it's the person wanted to do leatherworking. Cool, that makes sense. I don't know if I have to go look, but I didn't really care to. If 5e has like leatherworking proficiencies and things like that, because in second edition they were there in the non-weapon proficiencies, and you could make stuff, you know, like trade skill stuff and great. If it's not present in 5e or it wasn't in depth enough, I mean, kudos to the GM for going out, tracking down something that they felt would work with their game, and giving it to the player. But this just sounds like a whiny, petulant player that's just not going to, that's trying to win D&D. Not play the game, not have a cool backstory and a cool thing their character can do. It sounds like they're trying to game the system and win at D&D. That's my take.
And like, the thing is, there are ways to get higher AC. Like, if you're doing your leather working and you've made a really, really nice piece of leather based on that, but you want more AC, there's rings of protection, there's cloaks of protection, there's you can
Spells.
get this really nice leather work, this really nice leather worked armor magically enchanted. Like, there are ways to do it that aren't, I don't like this thing you did. If I layer this more, it should protect me more, and blah 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 blah.
I don't like
Quit
injecting
whining. Just
real
take
life.
what he gave you.
Yeah, like this will be the last thing I say on this, but I don't like injecting real life physics into games most of the time because it just gets really wonky when you start doing that. But if you're just talking about adding layers upon layers of leather until it's, the best in the game, how is that player going to move? At what point do you say, okay, we can add more layers so you can get a little bit more AC, but you're going to start losing movement rate, or you're going to get attack penalties because you can't move anymore. You're so covered and caked in leather that your character can't move. It's a reason why we switched from leather to
And that
steel.
and that would make him even more angry.
Yeah.
Like, if the DM said, "Okay, you can get all this AC you want, but you're gonna start getting some negatives," then he'd not be happy there. So there would be no winning in that situation. Game Master, Dungeon Master, if you happen to see this, which I hope you do, you didn't do anything. You don't need to do anything. You've done enough. If he ain't happy, that's his problem, not yours.
Agreed.
All right.
You grab the next
Let's
one.
go to the next one. Player wants to play a monstrous race after I already told them it made me feel uncomfortable. So I am trying to start up a Monster of the Week type campaign. The premise is that the guide brought the party together due to the creature trying to invade their universe, and it caused other things to slip through. Why are you using 5e? Use Monster of the Week. I digress. I have been talking with my players as I make the world, letting them make their hometown cities so they feel more planted in the world as characters,
Time
and
out.
I can better weave them into the story.
Isn't that what
But
Monster of the Week does? Okay, just checking. It really sounds like they want to play Monster of the Week.
I do want to give kudos to the DM there. You sound like you're letting your players really get invested in the world building,
Yeah.
and that's awesome. Like, from what I can tell, you're not the asshole. The last player to get with me about what he wanted to play told me he wanted to play a Drider, which I said made me feel uncomfortable, and I would prefer if he didn't play a monstrous race. This is for a few reasons. One, I am a new DM, and if I can, I would like to keep things kind of simple. Understandable.
Yeah.
This specific player has been overly sexualizing Driders as of late. They have always jumped between different monsters that they fantasize about. For example, I was joining one of their games a while back, and the game fell through later, and they suggested I play a Wendigo character. They even made a homebrew race for it. This all was said after they posted a load of not safe for work Wendigo art in one of our Discord channels. And when I say after, I mean just about the same day. I'm just at a bit of a loss. I've already said it makes me uncomfy, but they keep trying to convince me to let them play a Drider. Edit. Oh, we're going to skip the edits. But yeah.
We'll go back to those edits maybe.
Basically, yeah, we might. So basically, this DM said no, and they're trying to convince them to not say no.
Yeah.
I'm gonna let you go first on this one.
Okay, so I don't know when it became so taboo for DMs, GMs, storytellers to tell their players no to something and just have a player accept that and move on. Like, I don't need to have any reason to say no to a character concept. I could just, it doesn't fit with what I have planned for the game. I just don't like it. I can say no, but this game master has a couple really good reasons to say no. One, they're new and they want to keep things simple. 5e races tend to add mechanics that can get a little complicated and problematic to deal with if you're not used to playing and running the game. Like some of the elves, like what, the Eladrian and the Shadakar. I know I just totally butchered that name. They have teleportation steps. Like they can teleport. Some of the Aasimar, they can fly. If you're not ready and prepared and used to those mechanics, they can throw a monkey wrench into your beginning starter encounters that you're building, because you tend to think in 3 dimensions, like 2 dimensions, on encounters. You know, what's on the ground and what's standing on the ground. You don't think what's floating in the air, and then how does something teleport around. Also, they're sexualizing the Driders. If you don't want spicy stuff in your games, whether it involves spider people or not, you have every right not to have spicy stuff in your games. Like, yeah.
So yeah,
just say no and accept no.
I agree. I think the big thing is you're a new DM. If you want to keep things simple, keep it simple. Like I have no issues with that. I've seen veteran players online and on TikTok say that, like, oh, if I get into a game with a DM and they say it's only player's handbook stuff, I'm not playing in that game.
Why?
Well, I think that's kind of ridiculous because there are some new DMs that maybe that's all they have access to, and they want to keep it to what they have access to. I don't think there's an issue with it. Now, I think if you've been DMing for 15, 20 years and you're still saying, no, you're only allowed this much, yeah, I can understand that and being upset about that. But as a new DM, no, I don't have an issue with that. Also, like you said, I don't have an issue with a DM saying no. You don't need a reason. In fact, I feel that we should not be afraid to say no. If your the player wants to do something, you don't want that in your game for whatever reason, then they can go find a different game. I mean, it's not bad to say no. Now, I think there are some instances where DMs are just being dicks when they say no. I've seen that. I know it to be true, but I don't think that that is the intent of this poster. I think this poster is like, hey, you are sexualizing Driders. I want to keep it simple. Let's not. And I'm okay with that. Let's keep it simple. I do want to cut back to the whole first sentence. I want to run a Monster of the Week type game.
Yeah.
D&D's not very much. I mean, like, it can be, but I would recommend, like, Monster Hearts, Monster of the Week. There are a lot of systems that do Monster of the Week better. Hell, the Crypt is open. Shout out to our friends at When Suddenly. That game is perfect for a Monster of the Week type game.
Yep.
With, like, a settlement building, and just every week you're fighting a new cryptid. You could throw that into that type of game. I feel like that what they want to play is not what they're playing, but that's for another day. But yeah, don't be afraid to tell your players no if it makes you uncomfortable, and don't be afraid to say no if it doesn't make sense or doesn't fit. That's about all I have for that one.
Yeah, I mean, we'll definitely have to circle back on another day to talk about that first sentence, because when they said, I want to set up Monster of the Week and then, but we're going to do it in 5e, I always scratch my head at that kind of thing. Like, just play the game that you're trying to play and instead of trying to shoehorn it into 5e. The vibe is going to be completely different.
I mean, also the fact that they're a new DM, they might not know there's other systems, so forgivable. But yeah.
Yeah.
So let's look at some of these edits because I'm kind of looking at them.
Okay.
Thank you all for the words of wisdom. Just like everyone said to do, I stood firm and told him outright that he could not play a drider and he could not homebrew a race.
Okay.
Good.
Good for
Good
you.
for you. Yeah. Edit. Not sure if this matters at all, but I did see maturity being talked about in the comments and thought to clarify. I'm an asexual 21-year-old female. This player knows this. He is only a few years older than me and has even asked me in the past games we've played in together, both as players, if our characters could be dating/intimate, which I immediately shut down. Okay, yeah, I'd get rid of
Red
the player.
flags.
I'd get rid of the
Like,
player.
yeah.
Like if
That's, yeah, red
like
flags.
I I feel like this female said or this woman said no. This 21-year-old woman said no to something, and this man who is older than her probably thought, "No, you're not going to say no to me," and is the reason he's fighting her over it. Yeah, I would ask him to leave. Like that sounds horrible. Like if you make it known that you're not into this intimacy stuff and the person continues to ask you, that's a red flag. Get rid of him.
Yeah.
Do not let him play at your table. Like that is alarming.
Yep. Bounce them. That's ultra red flag. And the third edit doesn't have really anything to do with what's going on in the situation. So we could skip that one.
Also, we'll do the last edit number 3. For anyone who is wondering why I censored the word Wendigo, it's because I personally have been told one too many times and have had people yell at me and report me on different platforms claiming it's cultural appropriation. The lore behind it is that even saying the name can summon it or bring it to you. Okay.
Yeah.
Good on them for explaining. Whatever.
Yep.
Let's move on. I don't want to get into that one.
Neither do I. All right, so which one of these one I want to grab next? I think I'm going to go with this one because this one got a bit of a visceral reaction out of me. And let me ask players: if you put up an LFG for a game in the forum, just searching for any game, would you audition for a spot in that game? Because that's what happened to the person in this post. So the title reads, "Would you audition in front of other candidates for a spot in an online game?" Now, I think I'll start reading this, but we have to understand this was just for a game. This wasn't for an actual play show that was being set up. It was just to fill a seat at a table. That's
so in front the title, would you audition for a spot in an online game? If you get rid of the in front of other candidates, I might be okay with it. Like if you're talking about like being screened, because like I'll bring people in and talk to them and try to get the vibe check, but that to me is not auditioning. That's me seeing if they're going to be a fit.
right.
But when you add in front of other candidates, like there's no room for error there. Go ahead, read.
Yeah. So the post reads, this is something that happened to me last week, and they were wondering if they overreacted. First of all, if the DM who contacted me is reading this, please don't take it personally. No, take it personally. I'm telling you, take this personally. I'm not throwing any shade or accusing you of doing anything wrong. I'll do it for you. I just wanted to get other people's takes on this. So I posted an RLFG that I was hoping to join a game, and someone contacted me with the opportunity to join their game. Existing campaign that was missing one player. Details aren't important, but the application process seemed pretty normal at first. Fill out a form, answer some questions, etc. I mean, I usually just have some people answer questions before pulling them in, and if I even go that far, but I usually just get interested parties and do what Dragon said, a vibe check. Anyway, then they told me they were going to have auditions. I thought at first they meant a one-on-one call with the DM or maybe with the other players to determine if I was a good fit. Yeah, I might do something. I do stuff like that for
Acceptable.
Yeah, I do that. But, just quickly, instead, what they were planning was to invite all the candidates. There were 3 of us competing for one available spot to introduce our characters and do some role play with the group, which would then judge us in real time and pick the best one. I said no thanks because it sounded like an awkward and humiliating thing to do. Was I wrong? Is this normal for joining online games? And again, we're not talking about an actual play show here that somebody's trying to set up, but we are talking about a DM that has delusions that they're running an actual play show if this is how they're behaving. Because this is not normal. It's not acceptable. It's really weird. And I even got a comment back when I did a TikTok video on this from somebody who runs one of the bigger actual play shows on TikTok and Twitch. You know who I'm talking about, Dragon. And she said, this is weird. And they don't even do this. So, no, I'll throw shade at this DM. That is not something you want to do to normal players that you're pulling out of an LFG forum just to fill a spot at your table. The one-on-one call, the application form, and a vibe check with all the people at the table to make sure everybody gets along, perfectly acceptable. Putting all 3 people on the spot, judging them in real time, and be like, no, you are the weakest link. Bye-bye. No, that is cringy as hell. Cringy as hell.
So I have a little insight into getting invited to an actual play. I'm on a show on Friday nights called Beards and Barbarians. I'm gonna quickly tell you the process of how I got onto that show. Right? I didn't reach out to them. They reached out to me. They have people in place that their jobs are to do certain things. Joe, who is the guy that reaches out to people and tries to bring in guests. They contacted me. Joe contacted me via Discord or via TikTok. He messaged me on Discord. He got a vibe check from me. We had a conversation. He's like, hey, this is what we want. We're needing someone to fill in for a little bit. Would you be interested? Once I said yes, he asked me a couple questions. Then he sent me to the DM, Brad, who I talked to for about 2 hours, vibing, getting a vibe check, building a character, seeing what he wanted from me. We created a character. From there, I got to meet everyone else prior to the game. All of us vibed. Then they said, okay, you've got the spot. It was not an audition so much with other people. So even in actual plays, this doesn't happen. You're not auditioning. Like, people might put a post out, hey, we're looking for someone, and if you respond to them, yeah, they might reach out to you, they might send an application, they might get a one-on-one chat with you, they might message you, they might ask a bunch of questions. It's safety things, right? You don't want a Nazi or something like that coming into your channel, or I probably shouldn't have said that word, but whatever. We shouldn't, people like that, you want to make sure you're not getting people that are not cool, that are not going to mesh with your group. That is perfectly acceptable. And that's for an actual play, and that's also for your normal table. But bringing in 3 people and saying, hey, we're going to start role-playing, and whichever of the 3 of you we like the best is the one we're going to bring into the group. My response would be a big middle finger, F you, I'm out of here. Like, this is ridiculous. If you have an open spot, the first person who signed up is the person who gets it. That's my opinion. Unless they don't vibe with you. Then you go to the next person. Then you go to the next person.
Yeah.
But an audition,
panel interview?
This is horrible. Yeah. This is horrible. This DM should be ashamed of themselves. Those players who are encouraging this should be ashamed of themselves. That is one way to instantly make someone not feel welcome at your table.
Well, and
like, why would anyone feel accepted?
I like some of the comments for this because overwhelmingly, a lot of people are saying, no, this is ridiculous. I'm not a fan of Matt Mercer or anything, but there's a comment here that I actually like that mentioned him. It said, unless the DM is Matt Mercer and I'm auditioning for a spot in Critical Role / Vox Machina, surrounded by a bunch of other professional voice actors, I'd pass. And I mean, yeah, Exactly. Um, Thankfully, I don't see anybody in here sticking up for the DM. Another person said, the answer back says, I think perhaps the DM has delusions of grandeur. If there's only one spot available, give it to the first suitable person that applies. Don't waste everyone else's time. Yes! Right there. Perfect.
I love the one here. It's D&D, not professional theater. Auditioning is at best weirdly formal, but also a waste of time for most of the people. They want you to come up with a character and have them nailed down enough to impress the group before you even joined. Nah, that's not reasonable. I agree.
Right? Okay.
Like,
Last one. Unless you're getting paid, this is needlessly competitive and extremely high drama. Well said.
like and the like I can't even imagine like a paid game master doing something like this. Like I can't fathom this being done by anyone. Like the fact that this is a post. No wonder like some people are turned away from the hobby or turned away from the community. Like, what if this was a person who's trying to get into their first table, never
Mm-hmm.
played before, never had any interaction, and their first interaction with the tabletop role playing game community is, hey, you've got to audition with these three other people in real time, and we're gonna pick who we like best. That person's never gonna play another TTRPG.
No.
That person is never going to join another table. You've lost a person in the hobby
Mm-hmm.
because you are being it's not gatekeeping,
Oh no,
but
it's
it's
gatekeeping.
exclusion. Okay,
That is
I don't even
definitely
feel like
gatekeeping.
Yeah, it's definitely exclusionary. Like you are saying, hey, you might not be good enough to join our group, even though you were the first person that reached out to me. I don't know.
They
I
didn't. No,
this
no, no.
one
That's
this
the other
one
part of the.
bothers
That's
me.
the other part. The player did not reach out to the DM. The DM reached out to the player. That was the other part. The player posted in LFG, I'm looking for a table, and the DM said, hey, we have one open spot mid campaign. We need to fill a chair.
Well, that's even worse.
Yes.
That's even worse. Oh my god.
That's why I had such a
All
visceral
right.
reaction to that. I was like, oh, hell no. Not cool in a million years.
All right, let's move on. I want to save the missing one
Okay.
for last, so we're going to do the social conflict. Social conflict versus physical conflict. Why are some players averse to their character being deceived in game, but accept when their character dies? This may be off topic, but since I've started playing TTRPGs, and now since beginning to build my own, I've struggled with educating rules for social conflict. It seems that like the people I've playtested and played other systems with are uncomfortable with failing at social conflict and having to act in game on what they know is false information out of game, but have no problem in accepting death when it comes in combat. Is there any way to am- ameliorate this problem? Should I make the rules different for the player side of things when it comes to social conflict, or just remove the rules from it entirely?
No,
Is
no.
it group specific? Is your experience is or just this or just the thing people generally don't like to grapple with?
All right. This bothers me. This is one of those ones that like I get into like the back and forths on, and like it just bugs me because somebody, and I think it was in this. Was it mentioned in the post? Because I know it's mentioned in the comments because I've read through a couple of the comments. Somebody invariably brings up player agency into this argument without understanding what the term player agency actually means because it doesn't fit here. Also, in that second paragraph where it says they have to act on information in game that's false that they know out of game is false. That's metagaming. Your character's knowledge is different from the player knowledge. And I kind of want to change gears
So
here on this just a little bit and look at it from a different side. Do you have people role play the thing first or roll the dice to figure out what they do first, if they succeed or fail, and then role play the result? Because I think that is really the defining factor on the mechanics for this one. But go on, what were you saying?
So I think my issue here is that I don't even know how to put it properly. I feel that social things, a lot of games don't do social well because they're not built for that style of gaming, right? So I'm gonna use D&D. I know we pick on D&D, but social skills and social rules, rules, rules in D&D are minuscule.
Yeah.
Hey, I want to tell these guards that someone over there is causing a crime. I roll my persuasion, they go investigate. If I succeed, they laugh at me and something else happens if I fail. Okay. There are a lot of DMs that'll be like, "Oh, I won't let you roll that unless you narrate how you're telling them this to me."
Yeah. No,
D&D
not me.
doesn't really facilitate that. Me coming up and be like, "Hey guys, somebody over there stole old woman Roberta's purse. You guys need to go stop them." Roll my persuasion, and they run and go do it. Or, "Hey, I'm gonna tell them that there's a crime happening. They need to go take a look at," and roll the dice. The exact same thing happens regardless of how you say it or do it, right? Now, contrast that to a social game like Masks, the Next Generation, which I've played on Sunday nights with Improv GM and a few other players. There are social things built into the mechanics, right? There's like moves that you can make that are pierce the mask, which is you saying something, and there is outcomes depending upon if the other person decides to go with you or go against you. There are rules that are really good for social things. And putting this into perspective here, hey, I want to do these social things, but your character wouldn't know this. But the problem with that character and player knowledge is meta knowledge is hard to break apart sometimes. And
Mm-hmm.
I'm an advocate of I don't care about meta knowledge. I truly don't. I've said many times before, it's always the stupid troll argument that when metagaming comes up, that if you throw a troll at me, that was on you as a DM. You should have came up with a better encounter for me to face.
But I think the difference
I,
here is,
I,
though, the troll is just, that's commonly known mechanics. This is a social situation where the
yeah.
player knows that the guard is lying to them. Even though they have never met the guard before, they never did anything like that. They just know the guard is lying as a player, and they want to use that knowledge for their character to automatically know the guard is lying when they have no reason to believe so in the first place. And the other
Well,
thing is, oftentimes these are the very same players that will use those social roles to their advantage against NPCs. They want that ability to do that oftentimes. They just don't want the DM to do the same thing to them. Rules for thee, not for me.
I, I mean, I get that, but here's the thing. I still go back to that being on the DM or the game master, right? In my games, when I run things for people, I've had players sit at the table like, "Oh, this person's lying." I don't, but I rolled and my response was, hey, you believe everything they're saying. Hell, even when they've rolled like low, like one or twos on the dice, I'll still sometimes say, hey, you believe everything they said because this person wasn't actively trying to deceive them. So even though they rolled poorly, if they would have rolled high, so that has created this mentality within the players that I play with. I don't, even when Steve says we trust them and I rolled poorly, I might actually be able to trust them. Or when I say, hey, you don't believe a word they say, they might have rolled high and still not believed a word they said. So as a DM, you can create that dynamic to avoid the metagaming by just switching up your tactic. This is why I know we're getting into the metagaming part here, but I feel like metagaming is a DM issue, not a player issue.
Yeah.
And I know that people hate when I say that, but it's just the way it is. And when we get back to this, physical combat or physical conflict in a TTRPG, especially D&D, has set, fixed rules.
Mm-hmm.
I know that I have 100 hit points. When my 100 hit points roll out, I am at 0. I roll death saves. If I hit 3 failures, my character is dead. If I get attacked, I get 2 and hit while I'm downed. I have 2 failed, and then a second hit will kill me. I know these rules. I know what to expect. Social rules don't exist. There is no steadfast, hey, if I want to deceive someone, this is the role, this is the outcome, this is what will happen. And that's why a lot of players will get frustrated because it comes back to DM fiat to decide what needs to happen here.
So
And
I actually look at
I
it
think
the
that's where the
opposite, though.
headbutting comes in.
So I actually see it opposite, though, because there is the deception skill in D&D. There is the persuade on the character sheet. So if I, the DM, go, all right, I'm going to roll a deception for my NPC to lie to you, and they succeed that roll, you believe that lie. Your character believes the lie. That's the mechanical result. The NPC said, no, the bandits are down the left fork of the road, not the right fork. And the player goes, I don't believe the guy. They roll their deception, the player rolls their insight, player fails. Sorry, player, but you need to believe that thing. But my character wouldn't because of the role playing done by the character, your NPC, so I see through their lie. No, you failed your role, and the NPC succeeded. You believe that they're on the left side of the road, not the right. Act with that knowledge.
See, here's the thing. I don't tell them which I'm rolling. I say roll your insight, and I roll my dice. And I say he's either trying to persuade you or deceive you. It's up to you to figure out which one it is. If he rolls less, I give them information. If he rolls more, I give them information. I don't I don't pull back the curtain for them. I don't say, "Hey, he's rolling a deception." I say, hey, make your insight, and I roll my dice. So I guess there's just a different style of game DMing there. But
Yeah.
for me, I don't let them in. I don't let them into that. I don't tell the players what I'm rolling. I just roll the dice.
Well, yeah, no, I mean that's I don't be like, all right, he's lying to you. Roll the thing to believe, see if you believe it or not. I'll say, this is what you rolled. That great. You believe that they're telling you the truth. Oh, I don't believe that though. Sorry, your character believes that. That's the mechanic. Another example would be, the players always want to haggle prices down, and they use their rolls to get the merchant to give them discounts. But they get really upset if the merchant's like, no, how about this? And they roll a counter offer, and that counter offer is to force the players to a different price point as well. So they don't like that, the back and forth. It's only let the social. A lot of people only want those social roles to apply to NPCs and never to their player characters. And I just look at it as rules for thee, not for me. I think mechanics, if you're going to use the mechanics, use them for both sides of the table. Otherwise, no matter what you do, it is GM fiat.
I can agree with that, but like I said, I know we're off the topic of this, social versus physical, and I still think the problem here is that physical combat or physical conflict has, especially in D&D
It's much better
Pathfinder,
defined.
there are defined rules. Social there isn't. So that's why you get these arguments where there are games that have really good social rules. Smallville, Cortex, Masks, a lot of Powered by the Apocalypse have very good social rules. So I think that's the reason for this, and the reason that this poster feels a little out of sync there. And that's really what I'm going to say the disconnect is. Defined rules versus hand wavy rules.
I'm going to stay on the side of I think players want a lot of rules for the one side of the table to not apply the same way to them on their side, especially when it comes to things that have to do with role playing. I am a firm believer it's not a violation of player agency for a player to fail a social mechanic check and be told you have to buy into this fiction now. But there are a lot of people that will have an issue with that because they feel like their control of their character is being taken away from them. And that sounds like a loss of player agency, but it isn't because it's rooted in mechanics. Um,
So,
it's
so
it's a
I
it's
guess I'm gonna say
yeah.
I'll go with the player agency thing real here because I'm gonna agree with you. So player agency is in a game recently. There were two of us that were separate from the party. We saw that an enemy force was coming to attack where we were. We told the DM, hey, we're going to polymorph into these two things and we're going to go fight this army, even though the rest of the party isn't here. It wasn't like an army, it was just a group of enemies, but you know what I'm saying.
Yeah.
And then he cuts back to the other group, and then he has them come back at the place that we were all supposed to meet, and our characters are there, and we're like, what are we doing there? He's like, no, you guys came back to tell everyone here that there was a group coming. I'm like, that's not what we said. He goes, well, that's what we're going with.
That's player
That's
agency.
taking away player agency.
Yeah.
That is taking player agency. That is looking at me and this other guy and saying, no, you guys don't do that. You're doing this.
Mm-hmm.
And it's okay. He's a newer DM, so I wasn't too ticked off, but it's like, come on, man. When we literally say this is what we did, we're charging into battle, and then the next scene we're like with the group. It's like, come on. But that's player agency. So we have a comment on the Twitch. I've never actually played RPG, TTRPG, D&D, anything that alike, but I like role-playing games. I would highly recommend getting into some TTRPGs. If you go to the Ronin's Den Discord, where we host monthly one-shots, and we're also going to be trying to get some other games going. So if you find our Discord and get in there, we would happily teach you some TTRPGs and
We got to get
role-playing
a link
games, anything
tree.
like that.
Yeah, we got to put the link tree
Yeah,
into.
I gotta get a link.
I have the link tree
I'm
on our
actually...
TikTok. So if we can link that profile to Twitch, that way people can grab in.
Yeah.
We could set up the Nightbot too. That we'll talk offline on that one, but let's get a link in there for now.
Yeah, I'm gonna find him. So start reading the next one while I get a link set in the chat for him to join.
All right, so this is the big one for the night, and you and I both are on different sides of this one. We found something we don't fully agree on.
Yeah, that is for sure.
Is being able to miss an attack bad game design is the question. In the latest episode of Dimension 20, a phenomenal actual play, had a PC who could only attack once per turn, and a lot of her damage relied on attacking. The player expressed how every time they rolled, they were filled with dread. To paraphrase Valve's Gabe Newell, realism is not fun. In the real world, I have to make grocery lists. I do not play games to experience reality. I play them to have fun. In a Powered by the Apocalypse style games, failing to hit a baddie still moves the narrative forward. You still did something interesting. But in games like D&D, Lancer, Pathfinder, failing to hit a baddie just means you don't get to do anything that turn. It adds nothing to the mechanics of the story. Then I thought about games like Panic at the Dojo, which I've never heard of or played personally, or Bunkers and Badasses, another one I have never heard of, so I'm going to be very bad at talking about
Nope.
that stuff, where you don't roll the hit to see you don't roll the hit to see how well you hit. Even garbage rolls do something. I'm a little confused about the wording there. So I'm wondering this: is the concept of you roll to see if you hit a relic of game design history that is actively hurting the fun, even if it's quote unquote realistic? Is this sabotaging the fun of combat games? Too long, didn't read. Is it more fun to roll to hit to see it or to see how well you hit? Is the idea of being able to miss an attack bad game design? I You want to
I'm
go
gonna
or
start talking.
go for it?
I'm gonna start talking. I can't seem to get a link,
Okay.
that'll work for our person in chat. I will attempt to get one here in a minute
Give
after I
them
stop
the
talking.
TikTok.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I'll do that here in a minute. But yeah. So anyway, so my opinion is I don't think that missing is bad game design, but I don't think it's fun game design. I don't think missing is fun. I've never thought missing was fun. I accept that it is part of the game. I accept that that is a consequence in some games, but it is not fun. I do not like to miss. I do think that games like Powered by the Apocalypse, The Crypt is Open, games that make missing have something happen. Like in our discussion in the scroll, Changeling mentioned that he's like something doesn't always have to happen. Well, I'm not saying that you deal damage. I'm not saying that you inflict an effect on the enemy. I'm saying that when you miss a roll, in the crypt is open, when you don't succeed, when you have a failure, you mark experience. Powered by the apocalypse, you mark experience. Every system that has that type of mechanic, I find that missing and failure is less frustrating. Where in games that are traditional games like Dungeons and Dragons, Savage Rift, the games like that, missing does not feel interesting. It doesn't push the narrative. You just feel like you've wasted your turn. And I'm going to bring up this example because I've brought it up before, and everyone who's going to tell me it's a statistical anomaly, it's impossible, I agree with you. But it happened. My friend John polymorphed into a great ape. Gets 2 attacks with his fists at plus 10. He was hasted to get a 3rd attack at plus 10. He almost got advantage on every single one of those rolls. The armor class of the monster was 18. He needed to get 10 or better on those dice. For 7 or 8 rounds, he did not get a single hit. He did not hit once in that entire combat, and it was not fun. Like, that is just one of those situations where I don't think there's anything I could say to him like, hey man, we have an awesome story to tell about this. It would have not helped. Like, even to this day, he will not talk about that because it was so frustrating and annoying to him. So, like I said, missing isn't fun, but I don't think the answer is necessarily making sure you hit or that there's damage or some statistical thing that happens to the monster. But having something that feels like, okay, this kind of takes the sting away, I don't think is bad. But I won't go as far as to say it's bad game design. I,
Okay.
I will disagree with that.
Okay. Um, maybe I thought you were on the it's bad design when we were talking in the scroll. That's the vibe I was getting. But written word versus spoken word, completely different contexts. I don't think it's bad game design either. What I think is bad game design, when they say they feel like it's antiquated. I feel like the modern traditional games are just so bloated in their action economies that a miss is just so much worse than it is in some of like what would be now the OSR style games. Back in second edition D&D, for instance, you get one attack per round. Everybody got one action per round. I go, next person goes, enemy goes. I go, next person goes, enemy goes. Like, it was quick. So if you missed an attack, you were out of play for like 5 seconds. Like, you weren't sitting there idle for 10 or 15 minutes, even at like a 6-person table. Because you declared your actions before initiative was rolled. Your initiative reflected those actions. That's how you got sorted. And you had one action to do that round. Unless you were a fighter or you had like 2 attacks per round at higher levels, weapon specialists. But again, it was quick. It was snappy. And to me, a miss, it does serve a mechanical purpose when it happens for the players and for the enemies. And it's kind of like a clock to me. Like, looking at modern games, it looks to me like a clock. Every hit fills the clock for the player, whereas a miss pauses it, and it does the same thing for the enemies. So it's just the clock filling and pausing, and you get the same results if you're running a chase or any other kind of mechanic where there's a skill failure. It's just the combat mechanics in the traditional modern games, I feel, are so bloated with the action economy that a miss just sucks the fun away from people because now they're idle for 10, 15 minutes waiting for their next turn.
I can agree with that. I can agree with that wholeheartedly. Like, going back to our Savage Rifts game, when Talarius couldn't land a hit, and then he had to wait, what was it, like 30 minutes to get back to his turn?
Ridiculous.
It's just, you did nothing. 30 minutes, you waited for your turn. You do nothing. You wait 30 minutes. You spend an hour and like 10 minutes having accomplished nothing. And I get, like, I'm gonna shout out our boy Talarius right now with his game The Legends of Kralis. That combat system in Kralis, it feels like that old school snappy, just, what was it, we had 3 rounds of combat in like 15 minutes, the combat was over. It's so snappy and quick. And you're right, a game like 5th edition D&D, especially when you get to the higher levels where the fighter, the barbarians, the paladins all get 3 or 4 attacks around.
Action, second action, action surge, reaction, attack of opportunity, bonus action. Like,
and I'm not knocking that because I don't want to say it's a bad system. It definitely, like you said, it makes missing feel even worse. And you're right, that's not something that in older editions or other games you have that same feeling. But, which is why I go back to my statement, giving the players a little something lessens the blow, right? Like I said, the crypt is open, powered by the apocalypse. You miss, you gain experience. So
we're going to be playing Fabula Ultima here pretty soon. And in Fabula Ultima, you can set objectives in combat. So the objective might not even be the combat itself. The combat could be just a backdrop, and you could participate either in that or an objective. So having different things to do is, I think, good game design. Because some characters, or let's just be honest, they're not suited for combat. They're more suited to some kind of niche, and that might be a support role, straight healing, or like a really specialized rogue that's there to find traps, remove traps, set up traps, that kind of thing. And putting them in a bare knuckle fight just isn't good for them. So giving them something else to do during the combat, I think, is also something other GMs should be looking at as well. Give something in the environment to be done besides just tank and spank, whittle hit points down to 0.
Uh, I can agree with that a lot. Um, yeah, I agree. I don't know. I don't think it's bad game design. I'm gonna stick with saying that modern missing is unfun.
Yeah,
That to me is it's not fun.
fully agree.
But it's like I said, I accept it. I agree with it. But anyway, so I think we're probably just gonna leave this on the title screen. Duality and I are going to step away for a few minutes, and we are going to switch gears, go to another overlay, and we're going to talk about some news in the TTRPG space that we want to talk about here in a minute. So, yeah, bear with us. We should be back in about 10 minutes. And if you are watching now, thank you for watching. We appreciate you.
Catch you next time.